So we look at another question. And this question says a car battery has an EMF of 12 volts and an internal resistance of 0.04 ohms. Calculate the terminal PD of the battery while the car is being started if it supplies a current of 100 amperes to the starter motor. Describe and explain the appearance of the headlamps if they are switched on while the engine is being started. So we'll begin by writing on the information that we have. The EMF E of the battery is 12 volts, right? The internal resistance R of the battery, so the internal resistance R is equal to 0.04 ohms, right? They want us to calculate the terminal PD of the battery while the car is being started if it supplies a current of 100 amperes. So I is equal to 100 amperes. And we want us to find the terminal PD. Now basically a car battery is a device which is operated at a relatively small voltage but is required to produce a very large current to start the engine, of course, right? And so therefore, as a result, it must have a very small internal resistance as indicated by the 0.04 ohms, right? So typically devices like car batteries which have a small voltage or relatively small voltage but are required to produce a large current must have a small resistance. However, there are some devices which have a very large voltage and are required to produce only a small current, or in other words, they're not expected or not allowed to produce a very large current, and therefore they must have a very large internal resistance, right? So let's examine this. So we have the EMF 12 volts, the internal resistance 0.04 ohms, the current I 100 amperes. We want to find the terminal PD. So since we have the internal resistance and the current I, we can find the loss volts. So if you recall, our equation basically relates the EMF E to the terminal PD and the loss volts. So the loss volts, VR small r, is equal to I small r, and this gives us 100 amps times 0.04 ohms, which gives us 4 volts, right? And so the terminal PD, based on this equation, terminal PD VT is equal to EMF E minus the loss volts. And so this gives us 12 volts minus 4 volts, which is equal to 8 volts. So during starting the engine, the terminal PD of the battery is 12 volts. Now the next part of the question says, describe and explain the appearance of the headlamps if they are switched on while the engine is being started. Now the headlamps, of course, are also rated at 12 volts, which means that basically in order to operate at maximum brightness, they need to be supplied with a voltage of 12 volts. So whenever the voltage is less than 12 volts, they will still shine, that's the right word, so the headlamps will still come on, but they will not be at maximum brightness, so they will be dimmer than if they were supplied with the required voltage of 12 volts.